Hi there, Tanya from moneygal.ca here. Welcome to my first video in my series on using Excel for your household budgeting. In this first video, I'm going to show you how to build a template for your household budget, and in the second video, I'll actually fill it in and help you balance your budget. But in this video, we're just doing a really quick template, and I'll take it down to basics. I'll assume that you're not very familiar with Excel at all. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to click on cell A1 to select it, and then type the text that we want to put and click enter to get out. If you get in the habit of pushing enter in Excel to leave a cell instead of using your arrow keys, you'll cause yourself less complications. Sometimes if you're in the middle of a formula, if you use that arrow key, you'll actually cause yourself more problems. So just get in the habit of pushing enter to get out of a cell. Alright, so I've labeled a few of my columns here. On this side of the screen, I'm going to put all the money coming into the house in a year, and I'm going to give myself like 10 categories for income, just to avoid having to add any rows or columns, just to keep things simple. So in this cell, B12, is where I'm going to want the computer to add up all of the amounts coming in for a year. So Excel has this really great feature in the Home tab. There's this thing called auto sum. So the first thing I do is select the cell where I want the math to happen, and then I just click on auto sum, and then I go over here, and by clicking and dragging a series of cells and then pushing enter, I can see that up here, if you click inside a formula, Excel shows you which cells are involved in the formula, so you can just verify quickly that it's done the right thing, or you can fix it if you need to. Alright, I can see here that actually that didn't give me $1, so I'm going to choose the B and C. I just clicked and dragged to choose both of those entire columns. You can see how my cursor changes when I move around here. When it's an arrow pointing down, you can choose the entire column. And I'm just going to click here to make sure that it's formatted to show me money. And I'm going to do the same for these two columns, F and G. I know I'm going to want to see money there as well. Click on that $sign. Okay. Here in this, so like I mentioned, so here is where I'm going to be entering the amount that comes in a year, and then instead of doing the math myself to divide it up by pay period, I'm just going to put a formula in here so Excel does the math for me. When you want Excel to do math for you, you start your formula with an equal sign. So you type in equals, and then I want it to reference this cell next door. I want it to take the number that I type into cell B2, so I'm going to click on cell B2, and now you can see that that reference has shown up in my formula. And I want to divide that number in Excel. Divide is a slash. I want to divide it by the number of times a year I get paid. I get paid every 2 weeks, so that's 26 paychecks a year. Enter. And now I want the same formula to show up in all these cells, but I'm not going to type that formula over and over. I can just choose this cell where I know the formula that I want is, and you can see that when I hover on the corner here, see how my cursor turns into that little black plus sign? When it looks like that, if I click and drag down or click and drag over, I'm bringing the formula down into all those other cells. And if I click on it and show you that each time it's referenced the cell right next door to it. So it brings a formula over in like a relative fashion. So if I'm in C6, it's going to reference B6. If I'm in C10, it's going to reference B10. And that's exactly what I want. Again, in this cell here, I'm going to want the computer to add up all these numbers. But again, I know that I have the formula I want next door to it. So I'm just going to choose it and drag it one over. And then I also want to give myself a line so that I can see my totals being separated from the amounts that I type in. So I'm going to click and drag to select these two cells only. And then up here is where you can choose borders, different borders for your cells. I'm just going to choose a bottom border, and you'll see that now I have a nice line. Alright, so I'm basically going to do the exact same thing over here on this side of the screen for the money coming out of my house in a year, but I'm going to give myself a lot more categories. So I'm going to go right down here in F27, and I'm going to choose that auto sum, click and drag all here. Again, I want this one to divide what I put in here by 26, so equals, click on the cell next door, divide it by 26, enter. And again, I want to drag this formula down so that the same thing happens for each of the categories that I enter. And again here, I want to sum, so I'm just going to grab this formula and drag it one over to the right. And again, I want that line, so I'm just going to click on that bottom border. Okay, the last thing that I'm going to need here is a real handy, this is the cell here that's going to make balancing my budget really easy. So what I'm going to put in this cell F29 is a formula that says equals the total amount coming in a year, so click on B12, minus the total that I spend in a year, so F27, enter. And then again, I just want it to see it by pay period, so equals the cell next door divided by 26. All right, and the thing that I'm going to do to make it really at a glance and really super easy when I'm balancing my budget is I'm going to select these two cells by clicking and dragging. And I'm going to tell Excel that when that number goes below 0, I want it to color the cells for me. That's something called conditional formatting. I'm going to click on this little arrow here, choose Highlight Cell Rules, and choose the rule for less than. This little box pops up. And what I'm basically going to tell it is that when the value of the cells is less than 0, so type a 0 in here, and I'm going to keep the default they give me, which is it's going to color the cell with light red fill and dark red text. It really pops out at you. You'll see in a minute. And then click OK. Now I'll show you the effect of that. So I haven't entered any money coming in yet. So if I were to tell Excel, for example, that I was going to spend $200 on something, you can see right away that those cells turned red, and I can see that I've now spent more than I've made in the year, and I need to do some work to balance my budget. So anyway, that's that. You can get this done really quickly, and in the next video I'll show you what goes here and how to balance it. I hope that was helpful. Thanks for watching. Bye now.